So hey guys, welcome to my channel, and in this video we're going to see about how to write a scan script in Python for the port scanner, right? So it is essentially done for checking whether the port is open in any network or not, right? So without any further ado, let's get started. So first let's head over to VS Code. So for that I will write here cmd and here I will write code dot, right, to open this directory in the VS Code. And now after opening of the VS Code, we'll first create a Python file, right? So I will name that on the basis of port scanner, right? So let's name it port scanner.py as the extension. So now let's import some of the stuffs in Python that we need. So first let's import sys, right? So let's import sys, and what this sys will do is that essentially it will act as a process which we will use in for exiting, right? So yeah, then we can also use import for socket, that will be giving us the IP and all those stuffs which we'll be discussing further. And now we'll be importing date and time from date and time, import date and time as dt, as dt is used as an alias here. So yeah, before proceeding further, what you can do is that essentially have a check of the syntax that we are using, right? So the syntax will be of this type: the Python3, then the name of the file, and then the domain, right? This will be the domain, and this will be having two arguments, right? The first argument will be port scanner.py and the second one will be the domain name, right? So in the argument array, like the index 0 will be containing the file name and the index 1 will be containing the domain, right? So if I going for a check of the syntax, right, so I can write here if length of the sys.argv array, right? So the number of elements present in argv will be equal to 2, then you can say that it is a valid syntax, right? So I can write here the target as a variable which will actually get the IP of the domain, right, that we're using here in the form of this, right? We'll be essentially passing here the domain, and with the help of socket we can get the IP from it, right? So how we can do it is that we can write here socket dot get host name, and what we'll be passing here will be the argv array or with index 1 that is representing to this domain, right? So yeah, how I can write is it will be sys.argv with index 1, right? And then if the length of the array of the argv will not be equal to 2, that means the syntax is wrong, right? So how I can do that is that I can print essentially that it is a invalid syntax, right? It is an invalid syntax, and yeah, invalid syntax, and I can essentially give what is the right syntax will be. Syntax will be of this type, right? So yeah, syntax will be of this type, and I can essentially close the current process as it is syntactically not correct. So now let's add some of the pretty styling here so that we can essentially get some info from it, right? So let me add some stylish banners here, right? So what these banners will say is that what port we're scanning for, right? So before that, let's add some styling here like so, and what will this contain will be hyphen, and how many times it will be containing will be of 50, that is a 50 times that will be in hyphen. And then after that we can print essentially the port or the IP we are scanning for, right? So the target will be like the target like so, and we'll be appending with the target that we got from here, right? So let me just copy it from here and let's paste it, right? This is the target we're going to scan for, and then followed by, let's say we can add somehow like again that hyphen with ending of 50 for ending. But before that I want to also use the thing like date that we have imported here, right? For that I can use a variable, let's say time 1, right? So this is the initial time that we are starting the scan at. So how we can get is using dt.now, right? So we can use dt.now here, and then after this done we can essentially also add this into a banner. So we can write here as start time, and how we can essentially get here will be by using a typecast that will convert the date into a string, and like so, yeah. So now let's head over to check for the open ports, right? So for that let's first create a variable that is for checking that if at least one of the ports is open or not, right? It will check essentially it at least one of the port is open or not. So I will be giving it a name of check with let's say value false initially, right? So for that, let's have a try catch block here, and now I'll be looping over the ports in the range of let's say I'll be using 80 to 100 because it will take a lot of time. You can use according to the demand you want, right? You can essentially scan all the ports if you want, but it will take a lot of time, so I am using a shorter range, right? So for that, what can you do is essentially we can essentially first create a small request from the socket to the domain in order to check whether the current port that we're searching for is open or not, right? So for that, we can use socket dot socket, and here we'll be using socket dot af underscore net for the IP, and I will be using socket dot socket stream. Yeah, so socket, my bad, socket stream, yeah, sock stream, like so. And now what I'll be using is that I'll be waiting for a specific amount of time, that will be socket dot default timeout, right? Default timeout, I'll be giving it a value of 0.9. let's say it will be waiting for at least a 0.9 second, and I can use essentially print, and I will be giving some of the information to the user that see that which port is currently being scanned for. So I can use here like scanning the port, that is port, right? So yeah, this is the port we are scanning for. Like we can use here essentially dot format option to have a better understanding here, like so. And I can essentially use your dot format of Python, right? And I can essentially pass here ports, right? Because we have used the variable as ports, let's name it as port only. It is plural, it is confusing a lot, right? So, and this one will be set default timeout, like so. So with this done, now let's head over to the result that will be receiving from the request that we have sent for, and now I'll name it to the variable of result here. So now I can use s dot connect x, like so, and I'll be using passing your two parameters, that is a target and the port from which we'll be receiving here. And let me tell you that this will be a boolean value, right? If I'm getting a value of, let's say, result is equal to 0, then that means the port is actually open, right? So yeah, we can print here like the open port is, like so. And we can essentially use a format here, or you can also concat here, right? So we can use essentially port here, like so. Yeah, and now I can essentially also change the value of the variable here that we have initialized here, like of check, that at least one of them is open. So we'll be changing it to a value of true, like so, and then we'll be closing the request, right, of like so, like s dot close. So with this try block done, let's go to the except block, which in which we'll be catching some of the errors here. So some of the errors can be of keyboard interrupt, some of this can be of a GUI error that I'll be saying at the time of I'll be writing here, right? So yeah, let's start with an except of let's say keyboard interrupt, and I will print here that a key has been pressed, right? Key has been pressed, like so. And now I'll be exiting my process, like so. And the second error that we're going to talk on here will be the GI error. Now what this will be doing here will be like, this will be this will check for essentially whether there is a socket is open or like up or not, right? So yeah, if the socket is not found, it will essentially return an error that host is not up, socket is not up. I spoke it by mistakenly, but it is host is not up this time. And this will be sys.exit to exit the process that we're executing, right? So again, essentially we'll be having another error, let's say of the server error that we talk on, right? So yeah, this will be printing couldn't find the server, like so, found server, like so. Yeah, now I'll be exiting the process. Yeah, So with this done, now let's add another time2 variable which will be having the current time at which it will be ending here, right? So let's name it as dt.now, and let's add a banner at the end, right? So what this will be doing is that essentially let's add a banner first, right? So I'll be writing here, so the time latency, let's say latency or time taken, whatever you can write. Time taken, in networking generally we write latency here. So what this will contain will be a string that will be typecasted, and what will contain will be like time2 minus time1 and the time we have started with, right? So this is what it will show, and now we'll be ending with another, let's say, hyphens of 50, like so. And if our check variable that we have initialized at first will be remaining false as it is after trying all the ports we want to check for, and if it is false again, that means none of the ports is open, right? So we can write here, if check is equals, let's say, false, then we can essentially print here. What you can print is none of the ports is open, none of the ports is open, right? Like so. Yeah, so this is the final script we have. Let's give it a shot now and see how it works. So now let's give it a shot and see how our code works. So let's give Python and the name of the file, for the domain we want to scan for, let's say google.com, like so. Oops, it is showing some of the errors. Yeah, okay, we have actually not passed it in the right format, right? So you have to essentially add here, right, the format that we have used earlier, because it will not be appended as it is an integer and the other one is a string, right? So yeah, this is how we do it, and let's save it and again give it a shot again. Let's see again, let's see. Yeah, you can see the open port one I have found is 80 and it is scanning for the rest of them. If I'm using control C, you can see it again like it is the key has been pressed and it is an interrupt. But if I am not essentially passing them, right, if I'm not passing any of them, then we have to actually wait for 100, right? So you can wait for it. I can essentially see like how it looks and how the banners actually look when we wait until it. So you can see it essentially has reached it. So let's see. Yeah, so you can see essentially it is a time latency that we get. Okay, let's again add some of the seconds here, so better understanding, better looking, right? So this will be a string, right? Yeah, like so. Yeah, so this is how we do it. Hope you liked my video. Like, share and subscribe to my channel. Till then, stay tuned.